Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Woo, this is serious microphone here. You know, my name is Vince Puente, and I'm serving as the chairman of the Tarrant Appraisal District Board. And I got to go ahead and just make a comment. I have a very short bucket list. All my life, it's been a very short bucket list. But one of them was to sit behind our real board of directors dais, and this fulfills that bucket list. So that's great. We appreciate y'all being here. We start our meeting. And in order to do that, we want to note that our meeting notice was posted timely, and we have a quorum with none absent. We have 100% here. So see what a nice dais gets us. It gets us 100% attendance. So if you will join me and stand for our Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to ask Mr. William Durham, our Deputy Chief Appraiser and former Interim Chief Appraiser, to lead us in our pledges. We'll check that out. Thank you very much. I want to speak when it's working. Absolutely. So let us welcome Pastor Tim Woody, City Life Church, Fort Worth, just around the corner. He even walked here. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Let's pray. Almighty God, we come together today to invoke your presence in this assembly of the Tarrant Appraisal District Board. And I want to, first of all, thank you for the beautiful sunrise this morning, just giving us a new day with new opportunities. I pray blessing especially over our board members, Vince Puente, Gloria Pena, Alec Blaylock, Rich Dayat, Jodan Bobbitt, Gary Lasada, and Wendy Burgess. Pray that you'll bless their diligent work, but also bless their families and their homes this summer. I pray that their work ethic will remain strong and they will do their work with all of their hearts as if they're working for you, according to Colossians 3:23. During this unique time of challenges and transitions for this board, we request the wisdom of God to be present in this room, marked by strong ethics, creativity, and humility. May the Spirit of the Lord rest upon this board, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, and the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. Give this board sharp minds and a cheerful, bold confidence to deal with the unique aspects of our rapidly expanding county. And God, may you be enthroned above all else in my county. May the glory of Almighty God shine brightly upon this meeting, for we invoke your presence here now, Holy Spirit. You are welcome in this place and in these proceedings. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Tim. Are we up and going on the Facebook? Okay. All right. So we are operating on Facebook, just to let you know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I need to make two statements. I am wearing a pin that is Molly, which is the bull's head. I want to make it very clear as an Aggie, I'm not wearing a pin representing Bevo. And the second thing is, I'd like the staff take note, these chairs are really comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Those are very powerful words and starting our meeting off here. All right, we want to recognize our visitors and we hear public comments. Please note that each person will be allotted 5 minutes. You must address a specific agenda item or a subject in which this board of directors has authority over. If you would, be sure and introduce yourself, your resident city, and the item which you wish to address. And we have first up Mr. Steve Moore.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Steve Moore. I live in Hurst, and I'm going to address the ARB. As you have on the agenda, we had a sudden resignation of the chairman this week, and I have served the last year as the secretary with the chairman. I think we've made a lot of great improvements and made some great headways, but I'm interested in filling in the position of chairman, and I want to have a working relationship with the staff and our members do a lot of hard work and try to follow the law and get the hearings done timely and impartial. And so we, as members, want to make sure that we have the support of the staff, and I think we've got to work on that some. But I am interested in the chairman position, and I know the judge has it until July 1st, and then it goes to the board of directors. So I think there's a lot to be done, but I think we've made a lot of great headways, and I'd hate for those improvements to be having types of obstacles in the way. So I appreciate it. I'll make it kind of short, but I just want to introduce myself and make sure you understand that I'm interested in the position. But I think all of our members are interested in a positive work environment and a positive outcome for the residents, because I know we do have a lot of responsibility for the entities and for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to make a comment to the public here. We are in a strange time as far as the ARB board. Over the past years, it's been a directive from the legislature that this board of directors, the appraisal district, has zero to do with the ARB. It is a separate entity. It runs on its own. It has its own chairperson, its own secretary. It is appointed by district judge as to who serves on that board and who serves as president and secretary. Well, here we are in the middle of the busiest time of season, and the legislation says come July 1st, this board of director takes responsibility for the appointment of chair, secretary, and the board members. So it's a strange time. Of course, it's unfortunate that the chairperson resigned, and we'll have to deal with that. But currently, it is under the authority of Judge Wilkinson, and we will work with her as best we can, but it's her call at this point. But we will, that also brings me a point. Over the last several weeks, and we made it officially between these two meetings, I have established an ERB committee with knowing that we took responsibility July 1st. Board member here, Gary Lasada, is chairing that. We've kind of designated that it can have 3 to 5 committee members, and then as whatever ex officios he'd like. One of those committee members will be, at a minimum, one of the 3 new publicly elected board members that takes place on July 1st as well. So we're already working toward being engaged in that process and doing the best we can, because the ARB is very important. It is as much of the public face, if not more, than our TAD employees are. So it's very important that we serve our community and we serve those entities. So thank you, Mr. Moore, for your time. Next up, we have Mr. Daniel Bennett. And again, if you'll be sure and tell us your residence and what item on the agenda that you're referring to.
Good morning. This isn't my first time here. I've actually spoke at this body on numerous occasions under different circumstances. My name's Daniel Bennett. I live in White Settlement. I'm speaking to 9 executive session 551.074. I want to start, though, talking about Julie Waddell. She's not here today. It's fine. I'm happy. Back in February 21st of 2020, I said I think it was 2023, she spoke in favor of the former chair, Ms. Catherine Wildman, at the Keller City Hall. And in her conveyance to Mr. Armin Masani and Ross McMillan, she stated that I'm a citizen of Keller, I had every right to be there, which is correct. Anybody has a right to go to Keller and speak, matter of fact. You don't have to be a resident. I've been to Keller many times. I know Armin. She said she worked at the appraisal district. She didn't state, though, she was Chief Law's executive assistant. She left that out. Kenya Alul came behind her and fixed that problem.
Mr. Bennett, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes.
You're bringing up one of our personnel. It's not on our, that specific person's not on our agenda.
Yes.
So if you could skip over that part of your comments about Julie, appreciate that.
Okay, well, let me get to the crux of the issue. There are people under Mr. Bobbitt's domain that have jobs that conflict with the policies of TAD.
Yeah,
That is something that needs to be brought to.
It may be, it's just that it's not on our agenda, and we'll have to figure out a way to, because I want you to be able to speak and to share that, but it's not on our agenda. And
All right.
again, we don't want to talk about personnel issues.
Well, let's continue.
All right, thank you.
I'm focusing on ARB.
Okay, thank you very much.
Tonight at the 5617, they're having a dinner tonight for the 1161 USS Worcester, who was bombed in 1968 in Vietnam. 12 survivors are going to be there tonight in White Settlement. Why is that important? Because under 4166J-2, this board has never put the veterans first, to my knowledge. Under 2019, that rule is passed. We've never organized the veterans first in the ARB. They're supposed to go first. I can go through the rule, but it's 4166J-2. I brought this up on numerous occasions. And I understood that Mr. Bobbitt was hired, my understanding was to come into and clean up some of the stuff. I don't know if it's being done, but obviously in the ARB it's not. Now, I just heard Mr. Moore speak, and a lot of great things are happening. Well, if great things are happening, then why we get a resignation? If I had great things happening, the last thing I would do is resign. So we have a conflict of narrative. So who are we to believe? Great things are being done, or somebody gets up and leaves? Right in the middle of ARB season. So you guys have to iron that out. I feel that Ms. Sharp stood here, I believe it was January, and intimated that there was issues at the ARB. And I believe, just from knowing the way she spoke and reviewing the tape, that she actually tried to make changes. And I don't think her changes were heard. And I don't think they're still being heard. People are slow walking on their pay. I understand at one of the sessions, it was intimated that the ARB probably should be working for free. Under those circumstances, anybody that comes over here who has to be proactive to the taxpayer, because I was under the impression the ARB is the vehicle designed for the property owner to advocate for them in the process when they don't feel their value is right. It's not supposed to be adversarial. It's not supposed to be demeaning. And those that are contract employees for the ARB should not be demeaned either. The adherence is to the property tax code and to the public that they serve, not to themselves, not to Brad Patrick. Loyalty is not a litmus test to work at TAD. I got more, but I only had 5 minutes. I want to thank you.
I'll extend you another 30 seconds because I did interrupt you.
Well, let me get the most salient point here. When people submit their documentations online, Ms. Puente, there's an icon for doing that. And the code says you can do it up to the day before or the day of. I understand that icon gets turned off about 5 days prior to because the system can't handle the volume, which that's an IT. Brian can take care of that. Now they have to come in and actually deliver their documentation to get a hearing. And sometimes those aren't even scanned into the system at the ARB. And then they come in and say, well, where's my hearing? Well, you didn't submit your documentation. They have no proof that the documentation was submitted. There's issues with the ARB. And I would like Mr. Moore to come into executive session and talk to those things about using personal computers since March, using emails on their personal computers. What if a virus gets into their computer and then gets in the tab on the back door? I want to know, why were they given computers that were secure just for the ARB stuff? I mean, we got antiquated systems 15 years old.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
What was Mr. Law doing? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Law's not here any longer, so, hey, but I do appreciate your comments and your passion.
The leftovers are, sir.
That may be true, we'll see. I do want to make one comment. Mr. Bennett brought up the veterans having some kind of priority at ARB, and I appreciate that, appreciate the veterans. Again, this board of directors has, at least until July 1st, has never had any impact on that whatsoever, so just want to make that clear. Joe Don, did you have something?
There we go. Okay. With the 5-day upload, a lot of that is due to the system. We are receiving RFPs to replace the system on Monday, and so then we'll grade that. But right now, a lot of it is the antiquated system and servers. We can't process it fast enough to get it under 5 days. We haven't found a better way to do it yet, but it is something we're working on, hopefully by next year.
All right, Mr. George Dodson, and again, if you'll tell us where your residence and the item that you're going to be discussing.
Yeah, good morning. I live in Colleyville, and I'm going to talk about item 6B, the director's report. I'm sorry, senior chief appraiser's report, I'm sorry. I was going to mention something about the ARB resignation, but since that's not on the agenda, I won't. I'll go on to my concerns with the IT system. I've been warning TAD for years that accurate and tested backups are critical for your operation. Mr. Bobbitt mentioned at a recent city meeting that most but not all critical data at TAD was backed up. I hope that now all data, all programs, all configuration items and everything else is being backed up, and that testing of the backups is planned on a regular basis, at least semi-annually. It's so critical. And we, obviously everyone knows it now. I also want to warn that there's a lot more to security than just installing software and hardware or new programs. Those of us leaders in information systems know that the ways to attack systems have grown as the complexity of system increases dramatically. And in fact, I was just hit with a fish situation myself 2 days ago. Anyway, the focus on security must be built into systems and processes and procedures to manage security, and it also must be trained to all of the TAD staff. The procedures must be closely followed. Also, in discussions with some nationally recognized security experts, they've told me that, of course, many, and in most cases, most vulnerable situations are with the staff or with actually the phishing activities. I want to warn the board that moving operations to a cloud is not a magic bullet. TAD must have top-level systems leader and small team who will be capable of managing the outsourcing of operations from TAD's point of view. I've worked for a major outsourcing company leadership for many years. The outsourcer depends on strong leadership at the customer side of the equation to help ensure strong operations. The outsourcing contract must be very detailed, must have penalties for improper operations. I would be happy to help with technical aspects of the negotiations as a contract comes up. And Mr. Bobbitt knows I've offered this many times. I hope future websites will be truly tested, not only for function, but also tested for security and to be stress tested to ensure it can handle the workload required. The importance of systems and data at TAB must be managed closely. And of course, I know that you're improving the hardware and software systems and I very much appreciate that. Again, I'm hoping that things can quickly be improved, and I thank you for listening to me today. Thank you.
Mr. Dodson, I always appreciate your professionalism and the information you share with us. I do want to comment on a couple items. You mentioned the backup. I think we're all aware that we were hit with ransomware earlier this year, and one of the things that I'll say saved us is we had done a complete backup, and we were able to pull ourselves back up. We had to clean 400 PCs and laptops. We had to clean 100 servers on site, 60 servers in the cloud, and there was a lot of labor and expense that was causing it. So the cyber criminals did cause us a lot of time and cost, but the reason we were able to, if I'll put it in my words, beat them is because we had great backup in place and it worked well for us. The other thing that makes me to note that I have established starting this meeting is we have formed an IT committee. And so this IT committee will work with Brian and the team there. And they will bring their expertise into it. I have asked for Alan Blaylock, our board member here, to chair that. And again, 3 to 5 board members, ex officios, can be a part of that. Now, he does have a challenge in the fact that it is talking about security, so that may limit who he can have on the committee. But he will also give input on even staffing, everything to do with IT. So, Alan, we appreciate you stepping up for that responsibility. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I want to, this is kind of on our agenda because we're talking about it in executive session. And I want to recognize George Dodson because he has been coming. I've been on this board longer than any of the other voting members of the board. And of course, Wendy Burgess has been here slightly longer than me. And I've heard Mr. Dodson come and speak to us repeatedly because as his experience was indicating, he was seeing and hearing things that meant more to him than it did to anybody else. And it turns out he was dead right. And he has shown up every meeting, been very, very respectful and professional, and I'm very thankful for him and his insight that he's provided to me over the years.
Thank you, Rich. All right, to end us on a bright note, Mr. Chandler Crouch. And again, if you'll tell us of your residence and the item you're going to discuss. Keep smiling.
Well, I appreciate the introduction. My name's Chandler Crouch. I reside in Fort Worth, and I'll be speaking on, I didn't write it on the agenda correctly. I'll be speaking on item 6, 7A, 9, and some general comments. So let's see here. First, I just want to recognize the Appraisal District Board of Directors election concluded, and we've got the 3 new board members elected by the public. It's a historic election, and I was just really encouraged to see all the involvement from the media and everybody in the community, and the effort that all the candidates put out. It was really cool to see everybody so invested and focused on the system and trying to work together to make the world a better place. I want to recognize Callie Rigney for being here. She's going to be one of the new board members. So the next thing I want to talk about is the recent resignation of the ARB chairwoman. I found out about that whenever a taxpayer, forwarded me the email with the link to the newspaper article saying she had resigned. It was a shock to me. I don't know what happened. I know that with every circumstance, there's always 2 sides of the story. So, and I don't have any insight at all into this. All I can say is I have known her to be a good, upright, upstanding person that stood in the gap for taxpayers and did what she felt was right. And she had professionalism and strength, and just seeing how she operated over the years makes me concerned. Seeing the timing when she resigned, I hope that her resignation isn't because she disagreed with something going on at the appraisal district. It'd be a worse thought to think that she screwed up and did something that deserved her termination. It's always a possibility. We're all human, but I just say that that's a net loss for the system. Mr. Moore is a good, upright person that stands up for what's right. I would absolutely be happy for him to fill in. This whole system, you mentioned the separation between the ARB and the appraisal district, and that is true on paper. But by function, the ARB is under the same exact roof that the TAD is under. It's under TAD's roof. And the ARB has a very limited budget. So the only way the ARB can function is if they borrow employees from the appraisal district. So you have running the ARB, you have TAD employees running the ARB. So there's not separation like two totally separate entities. The negotiation advantage is in the appraisal district's favor because of the environment and all the circumstances. And in a system that is imperfect like it is because of constraint resources and the property tax code, all the things we're subject to, the only hope we have are strong leaders. And that's the reason why her resignation is such a big deal. And the fact that he's willing to stand in the gap and all these ARB members are here is because they're concerned. They volunteer, they get on the board. It's not a fun job. It's thankless in many ways. They do get paid, so thank God for that. But it's a hard job. Anyway, I'll move on. I'm just concerned. Let's see. I wanted to comment back to 7A, approving the minutes. Last meeting, there was talk about this HOA contract, and maybe this would fall under general comments. I'm not sure. The software technology, Tyler Technologies, and the Linebarger was under consideration. They tabled it and that sort of thing. I just felt like some explanation on what that is all about is warranted and how it works. I've only got a minute left. I'll do my best. So those companies are under consideration. The contract's under consideration. What they're designed to do is find errors and exemptions that are being filed. The error can be caused by one of basically three things. One, the homeowner just makes an error inadvertently. Two, the appraisal district makes an error inadvertently. Three, the homeowner intentionally is taking advantage of the system by having two homestead exemptions. Those companies are there to identify the issues going on and trying to correct the system. When they correct it, if they were to find an error, then the error will be corrected, and what money they saved because of an inaccurate exemption will now be due very quickly. It puts the homeowner in a bad position. If it was due to a mistake, that's a bad thing. Cities that have a 20% homestead exemption on $1 million properties, when you go back 5 years, that is a ton of money. It goes to cities. Schools are cash strapped. The state dictates their funding. For a school to have to foot the bill on something like that, where cities are going to make a windfall, it deserves more discussion. I would love to elaborate, but my time is out, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chandler, for ending on an upbeat note. On that subject, and Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, we are under legislation as to that if we find an error, or whether it's an error or on purpose, we must charge back up for 3 years, I believe. But would you help me out on that?
Yeah, there's two different things that have happened. Always the rule has been if the appraisal district finds out about an erroneously allowed exemption for any reason, they are required, mandated to go back and remove that. There is no discretion that's allowed for the district to do that. And then just within the last couple of years, the legislature has passed a law that now actually requires appraisal districts to review every single resident's homestead exemption in a 5-year period to do some sort of verification that people still qualify for it. And so both the going through the audit procedure itself and the removal of the exemption, if it is found that one is erroneous, those are both matters of state law that we're required to follow.
Yes, thank you, Matthew and Alan.
So in addition to what's been said with regard to the tabling of that at the last meeting was entirely due to the fact that we had two different bids that had two different scopes, and so they were not apples to apples. And the work that would be required outside of those contracts internal to TAD was radically different as well. And so the goal that we put on Jodan and his team is to go and redo those RFPs and get apples and apples and apples so we can make a proper comparison and have intelligent discussions about what we approve.
Thank you, Alan. Hope that helps. All right, we're ready for the report from the Taxpayer Liaison Officer, TLO. She's not here? All right, then we will skip that. A report by our Chief Appraiser.
Yes, sir. On the agenda, I had left William Durham on there because I know there were questions last time about litigation, so I wanted to leave him on there in case we had additional comments or questions regarding his duties. We did go back and pull about $100,000 out of total lawsuit or litigation legal fees, so we were able to pull the budget down because I think that was kind of your main concern, Mr. Lasada, was just restricting to some. And so we were able to pull about $100,000 out of it. But during executive session, we would like to go into more of our methodology on lawsuits and kind of how that works, that we all understand when we go through the process, the ramifications of those. Cybersecurity verification, we have completed 100% of the active staff have completed training through KnowBe4. Staff that have not been at work, they have their email accounts deactivated, and then if they return to work or if we hire new people, they're automatically enrolled, and so they have to complete this training that's mandated by the state. And then we have to report it to the state that we have 100% compliance. Starting off, we had about a 20% failure rate, but right now we're back down to about a 4% failure rate. So already the process is improving our security, making the staff aware of phishing emails, kind of like Mr. Dodson alluded to. With current protest, I had numbers from a week ago. Right now, we have received 201,000 protests filed. We have 80,000 protests that have already been closed, 19,000 that are ready to be scheduled, and we have 102,000 that have already been scheduled. It's 201,000. We do expect more protests. I would not be surprised if we have 250,000 by the time we get through. But overall, we do, currently we've resolved 81% of the ones we've interacted with. And so we believe we'll get back up to 90% again by the time the year is done. So overall, we think we'll have less actual hearings than we did last year, or at least that's our current anticipation. Below, I have the public speaking engagements. These are the different city councils that I've or school districts that I have spoken with during the executive session, or not executive session, but public comment, or that I'm scheduled to speak at in the future. And so we're trying to make the rounds, meeting with the different entities, address any concerns that they have, and give them a chance to kind of provide feedback to us. And so we'll continue. There's 70 some odd entities in the county, so we'll be continuing to make it. It may take us several months to meet everybody. And then on the next page is the actual printout of the cybersecurity training. Do you have any questions?
I do. Can you give us an update on the phone system?
The new phone system was installed last week. It is fully active as of Monday. The previous system, the issue with it was no longer supported by the vendor. And so the system was out of date. The network wasn't compliant. The vendor that we were using basically essentially fired us because they could not support it and didn't want the risk. And so that prompted us to move as quick as possible to find another system. And so it is installed. We have had a few learning curves, just getting all the calls and queues set up, but I think we now have 90% of the bugs worked out of it. So it should be a better system than what we had, and it should be hopefully better for the public facing.
Thank you for that. That happened very quickly, and I thank you all for moving with speed on
Yes, sir.
getting that done. I know there were internet vulnerabilities related to that as well.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you.
Yeah, it was amazing. Acted quickly, even though Rich was interfering. I do have a question for you, sir. You attended the 4th Independent School District
Yes, sir.
board meeting to speak publicly.
Yes,
How
sir.
much time did they allow you to speak as a public speaker?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
They did have 42 people signed up to speak, though, so.
Don't justify it. I only bring that up because we try to always listen, and some people talked about our time at the public comments, and 5 minutes is actually longer than most of the entities that I'm aware of in the board meetings I've attended to, but We're always trying to do these in the most efficient way possible. And I think you'll notice now I'm starting to feel a little bit more relaxed about it. And if I've got a question, we'll bring it out. Or if we need to extend the time a little bit, we'll also try to do that because we do appreciate the public. And we appreciate, particularly there's 3 people that come almost every time, and they always have valuable input. Some cheerful, some not, but it still works out. Also, Callie was recognized a little bit earlier indirectly as one of our incoming board members on July 1st from the public. I noticed that we've got Eric here as well. I want to say hi to Eric. Thank you for being here. He will be on our board of directors come July 1st, and we'll mention that we'll have a special meeting for that occasion as well. All right, directors, if you will take a look at, we are now going to address agenda item 7A, which is on page 6 of your document package. The first one is regarding the Board of Directors meeting minutes, and I'm going to ask, first of all, our secretary, have you read through the minutes?
Yes, I have, and they are accurate.
They are accurate. Any other comments on the minutes?
So I move to approve.
All right, do I have a second? Thank you, Rich. I got nervous there. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Now we're going to go to 7B, which is on page 12 of our packet. 2025 budget it's action proposed 2024 budget amendments. And so this was a discussion we had at our last meeting. And so if you'll pick it up from there, Joe Don.
Just to be clear with the public and the entities, we're not asking for additional funds from the entities. It's a budget amendment where we are moving funds from our reserve accounts into our current fiscal budget. And so we have compiled a list of things that the board has already approved. And so items 1 through 7 ended up being about $1,261,250. And then 8, 9, and 10 are just kind of moving, setting reserve caps. And then item 11 and 12, it adds up to $700,000, so total $1,961,250 is what we're kind of moving around inside the budget. But all that is taking it from reserve accounts and putting it into the actual expenditures that y'all have authorized. And so we want to make sure that any capital expenses and services that we're paying for are properly annotated for our audit in the future. If you have anything to add, Brad? Okay. Do you have any questions? Mainly, it's just a housekeeping, just to make sure that everything is clear and concise for the entities in the audit.
Let me, well, that's some double checking here. Oh, I skipped over.
And these were sent out to the entities. We have to notify them when we're doing a budget amendment, and so a letter was mailed 30 days ago.
So actually, this does not require an action, if I'm correct, Matthew? We're on 7B. Well,
There is a staff recommendation to approve the budget amendments as
okay,
presented.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. All right, so do I have a motion to approve that?
That will require action.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the budget amendments as presented for TAD's 2024 budget.
Do I have a second? Alan seconds. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification. On the motion of the minutes approval, I was not at the last meeting, and so my vote was, I didn't vote. It was an abstention.
Okay.
Because I wasn't there.
So noted, please. All right, thank you. All right, we are now on discussion item 8A, page 12 of our packet, the 2025 budget workshop to continue, discussion only, no action be taken. So again, Joe Don, I'm turning it over to you.
Yes, sir. Brad and I have gone back over the budget. So right now, the 2025 budget shows a 0.45% decrease over the 2024 overall budget. This is our operating expenses with a 1.2% decrease for the tax entity cost. However, there's also the proposed 25 with the same direction, plus the added information security, hardware and software needs that we've been discussed. And so Overall, the actual impact to the entities will be an increase of 16.74% or 16.5% to the entities. So we realize that's quite a bit. However, we're trying to, minimize our normal expenses and only do the expenses that would actually secure the district and secure the taxpayers and the entities themselves and prevent other issues on the future. We do have a list of the added IS items, included the CAMA and the homestead cost project that we have proposed in the past that we'll bring back to you all in another meeting. And there's also supporting detail. In the packet, in the past, the meetings, we've discussed basically a very broad agenda or broad budget, very high-level overview. And so this time, we have included more detail. And so there's probably 15 pages that goes into our total, like payroll, materials, supplies, professional services, and facilities, and showing the budget to be $34,356,000. And then we go into more of a breakdown, but it's at the TAD level. And then we go into different departments and their staffing and their benefits that each department has. Where we're leaving out initially, or what I'm proposing to leave out when we send it to the entities, is the breakdown of every independent or every department for every line item. So we have the line item roll up for the TAD as a whole. But it's up to y'all what we send out. But to me, it's just a lot of extra pages that I don't know if anybody actually looks at. It's a lot of detail as to how much each individual department spends. But overall, my understanding is y'all approve the TAD budget, and how we kind of do internally, I don't know if it's really that important. It may just confuse the issue to the entities. So we would still, at this year, we would provide that as a supplemental index, but my thought would be it would not be an actual part, quote unquote, of the budget itself.
Does the budget part that you're planning on sending to the entities, does it contain each capital expenditure that's being presented for next year?
Yes, sir.
And I think that is adequate from a legal standpoint.
So it would include all positions by department, their title, their pay, their benefits, total expenditures by line item, any capital expenditures that we plan to spend. It's just not broken down by line, so you won't be able to see how many office supplies that residential is intending to spend versus customer service or support services. And then below that, we have the timeline. By law, June 15th, I have to send the budget to the board of directors and to the entities. And so this is still my draft of the budget. And then the board, before September 15th, has to finally adopt a budget. And this is page 12. It's
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. I have a question. I brought this up before, and can you not hear me? I speak too loud, I'll blast you all out. I've asked before to have these pages numbered, and they're not numbered again. And I'm quite frankly tired of asking for it. And I'll tell you why, because what we get in our packet through the email is numbered by page. So when I try to go through this budget today, we're going to go flipping through everything because I don't know where it is. So, Mr. Chairman, I would urge you to speak to Mr. Bobbitt or whoever you need to speak to in administration and get these numbered, because here we are again, all flipping through, not knowing where they're at. So that's just a side note.
Thank you.
the August 9th, I believe, is the next scheduled meeting when we'll discuss the budget. It'll be a public hearing where we have to provide 10 days' notice to the entities where they can provide comment, and then they still have 30 days after the budget is approved to file a resolution disapproving of our budget.
Would you repeat slowly, excuse me, the percentages you started off with? We kind of separated, here's our operating budget compared to last time, and then we have the capital expenditures.
Yes, sir. Right now, we're showing a 0.45% decrease.
So less than 1%?
Yes, sir, less than 1%. But it is a decrease, but less than 1% decrease, 1.2% decrease for the taxing entities. And so
So go ahead and explain to me, how is it lower? It's 4.45 for us, but it's 1.2 for them?
in the 2024 budget, we noticed there were some other sources of income that might have been underestimated in the past. And so we're trying to, interest rates for one is probably the main thing. Interest rates have gone up substantially since the 2023 when the 24 budget was approved. And so now we're realizing additional investment gains. And so we're trying to incorporate that and not have the entities provide that money.
And then how many dollars is in capital expenditures? Or do you have that handy?
Yes, sir.
Good to see that the chief appraiser is having the same problem.
Yes, sir.
Wait till he tries to tell us which page it's on.
Yes. Okay, we do have a page called Capital Outlay and Major Projects. I believe that'd be the one, correct, Brad? Let's see, I'll count backwards. It's before we get into the breakdown of the entities. There's a list of all the entities, and it's the page prior to that. It should be before the supporting detail. It's a little graph. Yes, sir.
And what was the dollar amount? Or does it have a total?
$1,184,500.
$1,184,000 what?
$500.
For a total of 16 point what % increase?
$16.57 increase for the taxing entities.
So in a sense, first of all, just repeat, we're going to operate basically at the same level we did last year with no increase in expenses. Even though we have cost of everything going up, you've managed to, so essentially, with all costs going up, you've actually decreased lower, but you brought us to a break-even, which I think is great. Yes, we're going to have 57% tax increase to the entities, but essentially it's a one-time increase in a way. I know there'll be some maintenance contract stuff following that, but a bulk of that is one-time expense.
The CAMA system is expensive. The initial estimates we received are up to about $3 million. It could be less. We will receive those Monday. But that is a large portion, and it is a recurring cost. So there will be quite a big change, and it will go forward.
Okay. And then repeat our timeline procedure, what takes place, and I know it's listed here, but.
Yes, sir. August 9th. So by June 15th, I have to provide to the board of directors and to the entities my draft budget. And so then August 9th will be the next board meeting. 10 days prior to that, we will notify all the entities that we're going to have a public hearing, and we'll actually approve or change and modify the budget. And so y'all have one more opportunity to review the budget, make any changes you wish, finally adopt it. And then once it's adopted, the entities will have 30 days from that point to file a resolution disapproving of our budget if they choose to. They could also provide input prior to.
Okay. All right, so, Board, there's no specific action we're to take, but we certainly want any kind of input right now would be appropriate.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm asking the burning Mr. Lasada question. Where's the building?
What page number?
That's why I want to know.
Okay.
The building fund, where is it listed in this budget?
It wouldn't be in the budget, it's a reserve fund, and so it's not part of our actual planned expenses for 2025. It's more like our reserve, our savings account. But at this point, we don't have a planned expense for anything with the building for this fiscal year, for 25.
So you've listed as a general reserve fund item.
Yes, ma'am.
But in that reserve fund item, we have some type of annotation of where that fund, those funds are going to be held for.
Item 7B.
Let's see.
I believe that was in item 7B. The item before, there's actually a list and it's itemized there.
The building reserve fund was set at 1.5 million on May 10th. The cap, well, the cap, it may not be fully funded, but the cap was set at 1.5 million.
So that's on page what?
It's 7B, it's the first on 7B.
Yeah.
You find it?
Yes, sir.
I've got several questions. The first one is related to staffing. Could you tell me what the 2024 approved staffing is and what the projected 2025 staffing will be in its total? Number
of staff?
Yeah.
Right now, we have 216 staff approved on the budget. For 2025, we're proposing 211, so we're reducing 5 positions.
The reason I asked that question, I was going to compliment you on, number one, rearranging the staff, and then number two, reducing that number, because it's usually when we see something like this, if somebody's being paid $80,000 a year, that doesn't include the benefits. So, you know, we may be easily over to 110, whatever. So by the reduction of a net of 4, you were able to move this around. And if I understand this correctly, payroll is about 67% of our budget.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, that sort of dictates our increases from year to year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me continue. I've got several others. I guess this is a thank you. I see that under the legal litigation budget that it has been reduced by $85,000. That's not the amount I was looking for, but I'm satisfied with it because I don't want to mess up what you need to do as a staff. So thank you for getting that taken care of. Other question I have is, my other question is, why is the training travel dues and publications increasing by nearly 18%? These were on the pages sent on the website at page 13. I don't know where it is in this.
Yes, sir.
Is it page 2?
Major point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to say I don't know where it is, so I can't find it.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's budget summary and financing method, I think.
Yes.
Brad?
I can offer on that. The majority of that's going to be TREP, which is something that's in the commercial section. It's probably William can probably speak more on it than I can, but that's the main reason. The actual travel and training is kind of an offset because there less people maybe going than previous years or more, but it's kind of an offset. But that's the main. It's $90,000 estimated in the commercial portion of the budget.
Okay.
$19,000 for what?
90,000 for
90,000.
TREP.
Of 90.
William, you want to help me on? Is it okay,
Yeah, why
William?
don't you go down there, sir?
There's the side microphone.
Although your voice probably doesn't need it, but.
Yeah, TREP is a publication,
How do you spell that?
TREPP. They have offices in New York and in the Metroplex, and I believe one other place. They're the premier source for commercial property data, sales, and so forth. We live in a non-disclosure state. We don't really have much of an MLS, so to speak, for commercial property. They track and look at the financials and go to the SEC filings. That's Security and Exchange, not the football. They go to great lengths to put this together. I'll tell you in a nutshell, a Metro CAD in a non-disclosure state would be conducting malpractice not to have this data source.
But this is a trip?
TREP?
No, I'm sorry. It's under travel expenses somehow?
No, sir, not at all. It's under subscriptions.
Okay, so it's falling, a subscription. Okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
We have to subscribe to this data source. We've subscribed to others as well, but we should, if we're trying to value $140 million properties, we kind of need the type of data that TREP can provide.
So is the full 90,000 for this particular expense?
Yes, that's all TREP.
And is that an annual?
It is. We'd love to do a multi-year deal, and we can save money, but y'all had kind of given signals that multi-year deals were a little uncomfortable. So it's a one-year deal.
And was it the same cost last year?
We didn't have it for 23 or 4. We had it in several years prior to that.
So do you intend to do it every year or just pick it up every so often?
No, in a perfect world, we need to do it every year. There's probably a little discussion that could take place that MAPS years are different than property value study years. But that would be kind of a fine tuning down the road. Right now, next year is a property value study year, and the commercial department will be a better department in compliance with all the laws and rules that we must obey if we have this data source.
Alan?
So, Mr. Durham, could you explain to me or help me understand why it was dropped the last 2 years if we had had it previously and were using it? What was the decision matrix there?
Well, I wasn't an employee at the time, but my understanding is that the former chief and director of administration were trying to limit battles with the board, and that was an easy one to eliminate from the system.
Anything else for Matthew on this subject?
Well, his name is William, so good to
sorry.
see you, William.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So William,
Strike that from the
my
record.
understanding with TREP and their training, providing cap rates for various types of businesses, say medical use facilities versus a strip center, a commercial center with other types of uses, medical centers, medical use facilities have much higher cap rates, which is what your group uses in determining the value for those. So industry speak, cap rates would bring much higher value for those. And so this group provides those cap rates for different types of uses, for different types of businesses. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's everything under the commercial property umbrella. It can be the Omni Hotel, it can be warehouses, strip centers, medical, et cetera. And they provide more than just cap rates. They'll actually dig into the SEC filings and provide financial reporting they'll provide from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, for instance, an apartment sale, they'll go in and get that information and put it in summary form. You know, we're in a non-disclosure state, so we're having to use multiple data sources to perform appraisals. It's that simple. I wish I had a manager here with me because they're so much better at this than I am, but I think I've given you the flavor of its importance to us. It's my understanding every other metro county in Texas has it. So we would be the outlier if we went forward with without it.
Okay, thank you. And to to assist Mr. Lasada, I'll speak to Brad on this. So the $90,000 that he originally spoke to was to travel, because I found the item on travel, which was $90,000. And William, thank you so much. I'm through with you. You can go have a seat. The dues and subscriptions was a separate $141,000. Travel was $90,000, and training $160,000. Well, let's see, $164,000 in the 2024 budget, and then the 2025 budget separate. So just wanted to make sure to assist my my seat partner here in the amounts to not get confused, you know, with his questions. So a little assistance for my partner here.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, still.
Gary, yeah, I want to take it back to you, Gary.
Pardon me?
I want to take it back to you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I do have some other questions. It was on page 13. And why is professional services increasing by 30.9%? And what are professional services? Yeah.
Gary, what was that percent increase you noted?
Well, what I wrote down was 30.9%. It was on page 13. Professional services,
Professional services, under the summary page, is an increase of 70.6%.
I must have got my numbers backwards. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you said, 70.6. Okay, well, let's start with that question then. I think I saw it maybe just in the budget detail, and I didn't get the total. So why is it at 70.6%?
No, a large portion of that, I'm sorry, a large portion of that is the homestead audit, earmarking some money for that, assuming we're going to move forward that
So you're
for
budgeting
2025.
that to see if we go with an outside firm to review exemptions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that answers that question.
We could have the RFP, I think we can have the RFP back by the August meeting, and then we'd know and could do all of it all at once. But I think we could get at least competitive quotes that are match on the same item, even if we don't do an RFP. We could match up apples to apples easier. It depends on what y'all want. If you want a formal RFP or just apples to apples.
Okay, all right.
Because it is, we budgeted, I think, $470,000, I believe, is what that the cheaper of the programs came out to.
Is that possible that you're gonna request that for 2024?
Part of it, but it's an ongoing project. So what realistically, I probably want to crank it up for 2025. We already have a paper process in process right now, and so we'd start it for 2025.
Okay, all right, moving on. I actually have a number. It's number 4070, software fees.
That's the CAMA system.
Okay, so going from 748,274 to 4,275,150. So that's our new software, CAMA.
Majority of it, 3 million would be.
We don't know, but.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
We're-
That's what you're budgeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then on item number 6505, computer equipment, 43,000 to 700,000. That wouldn't be included in CAMA or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
It's hard material?
Yes, sir, it'd be capital expense. I forget exactly which, 'cause it wouldn't be service. What is?
Well, what are we talking about? Computers or desktops or servers or what?
Do you remember what this?
That was this 700,000 to continually
Oh.
replenish.
Okay, so that's 700,000 set aside so we can continue. Basically, at the end of the year, we would move it into reserves. That way, we continue to have money to replace these things in 3 to 5 years. That way, we don't get to 3 years from now and be like, whoops, we don't have, and repeat the process where we end up with 10-year-old equipment.
Okay, next one is page 31. What is a senior support specialist in $137,997? What is a senior support specialist? I don't know what that is.
It's one of the support service specialists, like basically our customer service, essentially. It's one of the more experienced customer service people.
So a senior support specialist. Okay, that seems a little odd.
I think it's senior support services specialist. If it says senior support services, it
Yeah.
may be a typo.
Oh, okay.
Because it
All
should
right, I
just be, I
thought it
think,
was a new
senior
title.
support services.
Okay, I get it. Okay, I think that answers my questions for the budget, but I do have a suggestion, and it's whatever the board decides they want to do. It's not an action item, but it is difficult for me to go through 70-something pages on a budget, and I would suggest that we, in the future, not put in the comprehensive budget detail, because that just duplicates what's already in the prior pages. And because it sort of looks like we're doubling up. And that's just a suggestion to the board, more so than the staff, to cut these loads down.
So I'll make it, no, go ahead, Gloria.
Well, in the summary, it gets kind of scary looking when you see, like I mentioned, the 70.6%. And then when you go down to materials, supplies, and services, it says it's an increase of 196.1%. And capital outlay is an increase of 1,383.2%. Those are scary numbers. And so without the detail, we can't see what that means. And then the expectation, I guess, if I'm getting briefed on this, I want to know why the significant increases. It's good to see the negative where we're lowering, and I like the bottom line where it shows what the actual average of the increase is. But those, especially this 1,383.2%, that's scary looking. So we really do need to hone in on the ones that we have that kind of material being presented to us with a more, I know it's in here, but this summary page is what some people will just look at the summary and not go into the detail. So I guess I just would like to have honed in on those numbers.
So Gloria, I'm sorry, are you,
That's not true, she did not. But
well, so let me, Gary, you're saying you'd rather just see a summary. Gloria, you're saying you like the summary and the detail, correct?
Well, I like the detail, but particularly for these huge percentage increase. Why do we have such a significant difference in the increase? So if we only provide the material that we hone in on where those increases are occurring,
So provide comments on the outliers.
Yes.
Okay, we can add that.
And so let me make a comment on this real quick. First, good input. A year from now, okay, we're going to have new board members. And so I'd suggest you take note prior to the budget season starting that the board, whatever board there is, you have a conversation about how they would like to see it. Maybe show them a sample of what you showed us this year. You know, let them have a discussion on it and see how they want that group of people. It may be the same group, maybe a different group. Certainly going to be 3 more people, how they'd like to pursue it. So I think these are great comments, but it's also looking at a year away. And so please take note of that and let's do that. Rich?
Yeah, I like the detail myself. I don't end up looking at every item, but there are certain ones that I want to be able to see. I think I would be happy. We're going to see this budget again. So the summary up front is probably good with a clear distinction between it and the detail. And especially if you can add page numbers, that would be great.
Can I finish up with what I was saying? Because
Yes, sir, absolutely.
I may have not made it clear. I agree with Ms. Pena on the detail. What I'm talking about is, for example, item number 3001. It says salaries, overtime comp, employee benefits insurance. That's the kind of thing that I'm referring to, that we don't need that. I mean, the staff is charged with the responsibility of implementing the $322,368 budget for that area, and they just need to work that through. And I mean, it just adds a bunch of pages that we don't need. That's what I'm referring to. Just those where they start outlining salaries, overtime, all that kind of stuff, because it's by operation. This is under general operations. The comprehensive budget detail is what I'm referring to. On your summaries, I agree. We need to have those.
So I appreciate all that. I'll just get closer to the mic. Sometimes it works well. So I think it's a great discussion about what level of detail should be in the budget. I understand that what's required for the taxing entities to see may be greatly reduced from what we need to see and what TAD uses internally. We have a fiduciary responsibility for TAD as Board of Trustees, and I think it's important for us to understand the details that make up the budget. To Gary's point, I agree that there are ways that things are categorized in this budget that can be cleaned up and reorganized that will simplify life for you and us moving forward, but I do want to see a reasonable level of detail.
I'm done.
Any other comment on the proposed budget? The only comment I think I'll make is I suppose there's some kind of cover letter that goes with this to the entities. I would like for you to, in that cover letter, to cite that we're at 0.5% reduction, although, you know, or virtually flat from our operating budget. In other words, here's operational, here's capital expenditures, and yes, we're asking for this increase. But again, I think it's important that we're not increasing our operational budget. In a sense, without increasing it, we're really cutting because we know expenses are up. So I applaud the team on doing that.
I'll draft an explanation letter to the entities, and I'll run it through you first. That way you can see if there's anything else you want to add. But that way it'll kind of explain the board's rationale and kind of what our goal is.
Ms. Puente, I have a different question in this budget, but it's really a question because something's behind us, and I didn't know if there's any residual funds available, but we just had an election for 3 at-large board members for the TAD board. In that, we had an estimated amount of what it was going to cost to run that election. I think, and staff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that also had funds in there for a potential runoff for expenses. So what I'd like to know is there a residual from what we budgeted compared to actual relative to the election?
Have we been billed?
Well, we spent 474,000 roughly, 484, and the original estimate was like 6 something. But we didn't budget it for the 2024, because I think the budget was approved before we knew this law took
Correct.
effect.
Yep.
And so it was less than what we had originally anticipated, but more than we budgeted.
Brad, is that the final number?
Just the early estimate early on, even just right after the '24 budget was approved, was 300,000. That's what we were getting from the elections office. And then when, I got a timeline here, April 8th is when we finally got their final estimate, and it was actually 645,000, as Joe Don stated. We had to put down a deposit of 484,000. And they're still calculating the final cost, and we won't know that until August or September is what they're telling me. The hope is that 484 is going to cover everything, or it might actually end up being a little less, and we might get somewhat of a refund. We just don't know the final number at this point. But yes, nothing was ever budgeted in the '24 budget for this.
Thank you.
You know, I was in a meeting yesterday, and we talked about this, and it was noted that the 3 new public members need to bring at least about $170,000 value each to this board this coming year because of the cost of electing them. But again, we're thankful they're going to be on part of the team. Any other questions on the budget? All right, with no other questions then, we're going to move on, and we will now recess to executive closed session, which I have no idea where that will be, pursuant to the following parts of the Texas Open Meetings Act Government Code, Chapter 551, for the following purposes. And I'm going to abbreviate this slightly. Section 551.071(1)A, consultation with attorney about pending or contemplated legislation. Section 551.074, deliberation of the appointment, employment evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee related to the chairman of the Tarrant Appraisal Review Board. Section 551.076, deliberation regarding security devices, security software, or security audits. All right, with that, we'll go into executive session. Thank you. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume our meeting reconvene to open session for possible further discussion and possible action on the items deliberated in executive session related to the consultation with attorney, discussion on the chairman of the Tarrant Appraisal Review Board, security devices, security software, and security audits. So we have action item 11, well, no, based on that conversation, we talked about, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think how, so part of that conversation was about our legal situation, our legal responsibility, and so do we have any comment on that?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. Based on our discussion on litigation in executive session, I move that we transfer $300,000 from the building reserve fund to a litigation reserved fund, reserved T fund. Yeah, that's reserve fund. And I don't think there's a line item for that, so.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, on discussion, let me go ahead and start that with, first of all, this has no effect on the budget. It has no change in the total dollars in the bank. We're just taking money from one fund and moving it and dedicating it to a labeled reserve fund for legal purposes. Is that a correct summary?
That is, and I don't know if it's actually part of my motion or not, but the intention is that when certain money is needed for litigation, the board will come to the board, as it does for all the reserve funds, when we make decisions about how to spend reserve funds. So there's a discussion and a board direction from that.
All right. Any other discussion? I'm going to ask you to read that one more time for my sake.
I move that we transfer $300,000 from the building reserve fund to a litigation reserve fund.
All right, thank you. And we have a second on that.
Again.
Pardon? You
I
second?
second again.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we have item 11A, page 75, the last page, 75 pages of backup stuff. Consider possible action on purchase or lease of replacement servers and consider moving committed funds to the general fund for action on this item. So, Joe Don?
Yes, sir. All right, yes, sir. What we're considering, we've discussed computers and other technology and equipment that we have. A lot of it is dated, and so we are proposing that we buy or replacement servers for a total cost. For the servers would be $200,000, but what we are actually proposing would be really $250,000. That would allow us also for additional cabling that would be necessary with these machines, so that way they operate at the proper speed and we don't have data loss issues. So the servers themselves would be $200,000 or less. That would get us through the next several years, allowing us to move the CAMA system, move some other systems off-site. And it would, in theory, at this point in time, it looks like these potentially could be the last servers we need to buy, or at least the last large servers we need to buy. But also, the data cabling would improve efficiency.
Any action on that?
So I will, brief editorial, and then I will make a motion. We had this action item come before us primarily talking about the servers, but the reality is the associated cabling and network devices that allow those servers to interact with the rest of the network and do their job needs to be taken care of at the same time. And so based on that, I'm going to move that we authorize the chief appraiser to purchase or lease new server equipment at a cost not to exceed $250,000. Further authorize the movement of the $250,000 from the technology reserve fund to the general fund for the purchase of these items. And I want to briefly amend that to not just be server equipment, but server and related equipment.
We have a second? Rich seconds it. Just my comment on, again, is like similar to the last one, so has no effect on the budget. We're not spending any new dollars. We're just simply, we have the reserve fund for this purpose, and we are pulling out of the reserve fund for that, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. All right, something we actually skipped over by accident was item 6BI. When we started this year, I asked the chief appraiser to, time allowing, that at each meeting we bring up a division manager, and we as a board and the public learn more about that division and that person. And so at this time, Joe Don, what did you forget?
Yes, sir. I skipped over Mr. William. I got confused and thought that, I believe he did speak at last meeting, but he didn't introduce himself and his department. And so I had forgotten and thought he had already spoken, so I skipped over him. So I apologize, Mr. William.
No worries, and I'll assure you that I'll be brief, given what hour it is. Y'all have been very patient and diligent, and we're coming up on the lunch hour. I'm William Durham. Most of you up there know me, but for the sake of the electronic audience and the people in the room, I'm the department head over the commercial appraisal department. Our commercial appraisal department actually has 4 sections. We have the commercial appraisal group, which is rather self-explanatory. We're doing all the appraising of the commercial properties in Tarrant County. We have commercial research, and kind of piggybacking off of this morning's conversation with Trep, in a non-disclosure state, we need a research department. And then we have a special properties section also under the commercial heading, and that includes the appraisal of very complex properties, really one-offs that are quite unusual, not just warehouses, not just regular retail. We're talking about properties like the CBD, where we are here today, the Central Business District. They appraise everything here, malls, golf courses, other marquee properties like Gaylord Texan, Great Wolf Lodge, Six Flags, General Motors, data centers. It's really complex, and we concentrate some good people in that small section of the commercial department to get that job done. And then we have a section called litigation. I think y'all are aware of that as well. It's also within the commercial department. So there are 4 sections: commercial appraisal group, the research, the special properties, and litigation. The department as a whole has 49 positions, and I will note, Mr. Puente, we actually surrendered a position for the sake of the 2025 budget. And which, is good for the entities and people that watch dollars like we all should be doing. Of those 49 positions, 37 are actually appraisers, but that includes people like myself and the managers, because they are also appraisers. But there are 37 appraisers and then 12 support people. We have some for commercial, some for research, some for litigation. Litigation deals with a lot of paper, and we actually have three of those 12 are in litigation. With this group, we appraise approximately 60,000 accounts. It's about $120 billion, as you might imagine. Commercial properties are rather expensive. Now, interestingly to note, only about $85 billion of that is taxable. We are charged by law with appraising all commercial property, including buildings like this that will absolutely pay $0 in taxes. But we do have to carry it on the roll and occasionally look at that value and make sure it makes sense. So with 60,000 accounts, closer to 42,000 are taxable, and that correlates with the 85 billion, not million, billion, if I said million earlier, 85 billion that are taxable properties. I would like to brag on a few people in general without not using their name, but we have 7 appraisers, and they're primarily concentrated in special properties and litigation that actually have licensing outside of the TDLR system. So they have licenses with the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. In other words, they're qualified to do appraisals outside of the appraisal district environment. So, you know, in a perfect world, we'd love to have as many as possible, but budgets don't usually allow for, you know, bringing in a lot of private sector appraisers, at least as employees. But we do have 7 that have licenses through that agency, and I'm one of them. And then there's 3 in litigation and 3 in special properties, which is that subset of very complex properties that we have. That's really all I have. I just wanted to give you a feel for the organizational chart. Commercial is one of the 6 departments. Under commercial are 4 subsections. So we have a lot on our end of the building, you know, to manage. But we get it done. We pass ratio studies and usually stay under budget. So if there are any questions, I'd love to take some.
Of course I have questions.
Okay.
You have prior TAD experience with us. What was that period of time, and what did you do at TAD earlier?
Well, backing up from today, I've been at TAD for 1 year and 2 days. Prior to that, I was at TAD for 14 and a half years. The entire 14 and a half years was spent in the litigation section. All I did was litigation every day, every week, every month, every year in my 14 and a half years. 12 of those 14 and a half years, I was actually the manager of the whole litigation section. And we've got another gentleman there that does that now and has since I retired once and came back. So did I answer your question?
How many years between when you left the first time and your retread?
14 months.
Oh, only 14 months. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I didn't come to TAD until I was 42. I had a 20-year private sector career in real estate appraisal, real estate brokerage, and real estate investments. So I was pretty seasoned when I showed up at the door, which is why I went straight into litigation.
Great. Well, I know I've said this before, and many of us says before, we appreciate what your department does, what it does for the entities, and we'll always be grateful to you for stepping in as interim chief appraiser. You did an excellent job, and we appreciate that very much. Any other questions for William?
By the way, that 4.5 months was a real blast.
I'm not sure how to take that. Thank you, William. You can leave. There you go. Hello. Yeah, just a quick comment. We're about to wrap this up unless there's any other thing to be discussed. I don't think there is. You notice that we're not at our normal TAD location.
No, let him finish that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's going to be tied into our next meeting, so go
Okay.
ahead.
I do learn from history, and one of the things I learned was when it's during this time of season, our TAD offices are overwhelmed, our meeting space becomes converted to ARB space, and it was just bad idea in past history to have our meetings at that building during this season. So early on in this year, I approached TAD staff and said, we've got to find a different location during the season, which they did, which I appreciate greatly. Julie was very involved in that, and I appreciate that. I want to thank Jordan, and there's 7 staff people here, I think it's 7, that have to come here to make this happen. And so there's a lot of effort on the TAD board to move us to a temporary location for a meeting. We have to locate the location. All those things are challenging. Again, Jordan and Brian and everybody, Grady, I appreciate everything to make this meeting happen. William sitting out there taking public notices, I know that was not in your pay grade, but again, we appreciate that a great deal. And let me also, and Alan, I'm going to ask you to take this back, thank the city of Fort Worth. It took an effort on their part. I know there's a lady here that was helping coordinating it, They took their IT staff, when we were in the IT staff, it made sure the room was available to us for basically unlimited time today. I think we all greatly appreciate it, and let them know how much I appreciate sitting at this diocese. This is really impressive. I like this. And I got the bigger screen. It's awesome.
Vince, I'll let the mayor know you like sitting in her chair.
Yes, yeah, there you go, there you go. I'm not running. Board, regarding parking, see Joe Don immediately after the meeting. And if you have a comment, I'm going to state when our next meeting is.
Yes, relative to the next meeting, it's scheduled at 8 a.m. and
No, it's been changed. So let me just go ahead, let me do this and maybe you'll cover what you want, I'm not sure.
I'm just saying I'd like to delay the time.
Yes, I've already,
I'm sure there's enough room to get, time to get into the building.
okay, yes, it's already been rescheduled. It's
Okay,
already been changed.
that's not what it says here.
Right, that's what I'm going to correct.
Go ahead.
All
announce
right.
it.
So our next meeting is at 9 a.m., Monday, July 1st, 2024. Let me note that it is a called meeting. It is not a pre-scheduled meeting. Also note, it's not here, and it's not at TAD. It's at the Tarrant County Commissioners Court at the Tarrant County Administration Building, 100 East Weatherford Street, Fort Worth, Texas, on the 5th floor. This will be an open meeting with the public comments available, but the only agenda item will be the swearing in of our 3 new public board members and recognizing our tax collector assessor will become a voting member at that time. So we want to recognize that as well. So that will be the sole purpose of it. We will have public comment. It is a public meeting, but it should be short and sweet as we go. And I think it's going to be a neat ceremony. I've got several things lined up for that will just make it a memorable time. If you got any agenda items we are looking, it's not published, we're looking at a possible meeting date on July 22nd. It'll be another called meeting to address some additional items, because again, we don't want to get behind on things, but that's only something to pencil in. It's not in concrete at this point. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Do I have a second? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, public, for being here today.